Hey, it's Bobby and Eddie Talk Music. Hey, man.
Hey, man. You want to talk music?
Yeah, let's talk about something. Might as well talk music. From Stacker.com, these are the top 25 most covered country songs.
Oh.
And just data, search it, see how many versions. See if you can sing it to me.
Okay.
And if we can't, we're just kind of screwed because we can't really play the podcast or a clip on the podcast. But number 25, it has 162 covers, originally recorded by Hank Williams and his Drifting Cowboys, Clyde Grubb and his Tennessee Valley Boys. I Saw the Light.
I saw the light.
That's Brooks and Dunn and then Luke Combs when he did
Brand New Man.
reboot Brooks and Dunn.
So what is I Saw the Light?
We can't play anything, Mike?
No.
Or just a piece of it?
Can't.
Can I play it from my phone?
No.
Oh, we need reference to this.
It starts, I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin.
No.
I wouldn't let my dear Savior in.
That's not going to do anything for me.
No, nothing.
What if I listen to it in my ear?
You can do that.
And then sing it?
We're not going to jail, Mike. Hey, Mike, get over yourself.
Well, we're going to jail. It's going to be you two, not me. I'm just a guest, man.
I Saw the Light. Here you go. Gets a fiddle playing.
You could, all right. Try to sing it with it.
Can you kind of hear it?
Nah, I can't hear it.
Here. I wonder.
That's what I said.
I saw. It sounds like a church hymn.
I saw.
It's definitely talking about Savior. It's definitely a church hymn. Like a night. Let's go to I Saw the Light.
Okay.
That's it. Got it.
They must have covered that a long time ago, too, because they don't do that one anymore.
Wait, what happened?
Is that a break?
Yeah.
Is it Jersey break?
Yeah. I don't know if I won, though.
Can't hear that song either, man.
This is on TikTok.
Still a song.
What did I win?
Well, look, what are they showing? Type in there, what did I win? Oh, my God. He sounded like it was something awesome. So stupid how many of these you're winning.
Ravens signed Odell Beckham Jr.
Beckham? That's awesome. That's a good one, dude. Wow. Nice work. Dude, you're collecting these jerseys.
In a black bag.
Well, yeah, I mean.
That means it's one of the big ones.
Odell?
Yeah.
I'd say it's pretty big.
Okay. Anyway, let's go back to music.
Okay, that's really cool, though.
I can't believe I won. Whatever. All right, moving on. Number 24.
All right.
Crazy Arms.
What?
170 covers.
What on earth? These got to be old.
Again.
Crazy arms.
Crazy.
I'm crazy for your arms.
Here we go. There's some fiddle.
Yeah, this is old, man.
Old fiddle. It sucks we can't play a clip. We're a documentary show. I know. We're not going to know this
Who's
one.
singing that one?
Ray Price.
Oh, wow.
We're not going to know that one. All right, number 23. This one's easy. We'll know this one. 188 covers of it. Stand By Your Man.
Stand by your man.
Nice.
Tammy Wynette.
Yeah.
Is she the OG and then
she
everyone covered her?
She wrote it.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Number 22, 189 covers. Jolene.
Jolene.
Wrote it by herself. Number 21, 191 covers. I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love With You. Originally recorded by Hank Williams and his Drifting Cowboys. Written by Hank Williams.
No.
Then suddenly I got that old time.
How come we can play that?
I'm playing it, but just so you can hear it.
Okay.
I'm going to cut it.
Oh, you're going to cut it from the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh.
Some of this stuff's got to be old. Like, what do you call that when it's past the copyright time?
It's 95 years.
Yeah, it's not that
no,
old.
we're not there yet.
You're talking about public domain?
That's it.
Okay, I don't know that one. Blue Moon of Kentucky. I know Blue Moon of
I've
Kentucky.
heard of that, but I don't think I can sing that one.
Can you play it in my ear?
And pause.
Blue moon of Kentucky.
Blue Moon of Kentucky.
That's old school, dude.
That's old school. Okay, number 19, you'll know. Originally recorded by Patsy Cline. I Fall to Pieces.
Wow. I fall to pieces. Do you know her story?
Patsy Cline?
Yeah.
In what way?
Like, do you know how she died?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plane crash?
Yeah.
Here? Near? I mean,
Yeah.
Tennessee?
There was this show on I think Max maybe. That's like a movie that they made about her life, and I watched it. Man, she had a rough life.
Yeah.
Rough life. Husband was a bad dude.
You know who else had a rough life? Was me and Bobby McGee.
Oh yeah, Janis Joplin.
Rough life. And she didn't even get to have success alive.
Neither did Patsy really. She was just coming up.
Number 18 is possibly my favorite song ever. That's all I'm going to say.
Blue Eyes Crying in
Well,
the
I was
Rain.
going to give you hints, but yeah. It's 210 covers.
God, way to go, Willie.
Eyes crying
In the rain.
Written by Fred Rose.
Not Willie.
Not Willie.
Wow. So who was the original singer of that?
Roy Acuff.
Really?
Number 17, 213 covers. Karina, released in 1928 by blues artist Charlie McCoy and Bo Chapman. I don't know that I'll know that one anyway. Number No, I'm hearing it in my ears. I don't know that one.
Corina.
Number 16, recorded by Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2, written by Johnny Cash, 216 covers. I Walk the Line.
I walk the line.
Yeah. I know. Well, yeah.
That's got to be amazing to have so many covers of your song.
224 covers. Number 15. And I know this one. You know this one too.
Okay.
Hey, Good Looking, Hank Williams Sr.
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How about cooking something up for me?
And then the cheese, like the National Cheese Federation, took it and changed it to Hey, Good Looking, what you got cooking? How'd you like cooking something up with cheese?
Really?
And they ran it, yeah.
I don't remember that.
I was singing a song to my wife the other day. I was like, I love eggs from my head down to my legs. She was like, that's not a real song. I was like, yes, from the Egg Commission from back in the day, commercial. She goes, she goes, the Incredible Edible Egg? I was like, no.
Is that real?
Yeah. Oh, you guys don't, you don't remember, you don't know that song?
know.
I love eggs.
I do like singing old jingles, though.
Yeah. From my head down to my legs. Cold, Cold Heart. 238 covers.
Cold, cold heart. That's not my
Recorded
cheating
by
heart.
Hank Williams. These Hank Williams songs have just been covered by everybody in country.
My cold, cold heart.
Will tell. Can you play that in my ear?
Yep.
In anger, unkind words are said that make the teardrops start. Why can't I free or die?
I don't know it.
My cold, cold heart.
Maybe he does that.
No, that sounds like that would be next.
At number 13, 255 covers. I Will Always Love You, Dolly Parton.
Wow, that's a
written
lot.
by herself, Dolly Parton.
I'll let you sing that one.
And I do real low.
Smart.
Yeah. Number 12, Hank Williams, Your Cheating Heart.
You're cheating heart.
Cold, cold heart. It's like the twist, like Chubby Checker. He did the twist, but then he did a twist again.
Oh, yeah.
Same song, but just want to make a little money.
That's funny.
Let's twist again like we did last summer. John Henry, 310 covers. One of the most popular folk songs in American history.
John Henry.
Recorded in 1924. This could be public domain if we have the old version of it.
Let's see.
Who's this by? Woody Guthrie or something?
Sounds like somebody's playing through their cell phone.
That's amazing.
That was for sure 100
Sounds
years old.
public domain to me.
Yeah. Fiddlin' John Carson. It's been covered 310 times by who?
I think all the other folk artists around then.
Everybody in town? Yeah. Love's Ring of Fire.
Love is a burning
Originally recorded
thing.
by Anita Carter, written by June Carter and Merle Kilgore.
Oh, wow.
But that is Ring of Fire. It's a song that Johnny Cash sang,
Huge. He made it huge.
but a little different. But that same song. Number 9, 325 covers of it. Take Me Home, Country Road.
Yes. Take
Take
me home, country road.
We should know all the rest of these, right? I haven't
To
even
the
looked at them.
place.
Number 8, I'm So Lonesome. Hank Williams again. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry.
I'm so lonesome I could cry.
Riders in the Sky.
Riders in the sky.
That's the Doors.
Dum, da, dum, dum, dum.
And I don't know that I know this one yet, but that's the Doors. Will you play it, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Ghost Riders. It sounds like that's from a movie.
If my
Yep. 900 Miles Away from Home. Covered 351 times, but it's Fiddlin' John Carson again, so this thing's probably recorded with a soup can.
You can hear the whistle
That's so cool, dude.
100 miles. If that train runs right.
It's crazy. We can leave that in, I'm sure. Number 5, 372 covers, written by Willie Nelson. Originally recorded by Patsy Cline.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm crazy for feeling so lonely.
Help Me Make It Through the Night, written by Chris Christopherson. 403 covers, recorded by Chris Christopherson and Percy Sledge.
Wow, don't know that one.
I bet we do. You play it. Kinda. Help me make it through the night, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
It's crazy that it's number 4 and we don't really know it. Number 3 is, here's the hints. It's been covered 436 times.
God, that's a lot.
It was written by Jack Rollins and Steve Nelson. That won't help you. Originally recorded by Gene Autry and the Cass County Boys.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
No, but you're close.
Oh, what's the one that click, click, click up on the housetop?
Frosty the Snowman.
Dang it! Yeah. You would. That's crazy that was their original.
Mm-hmm.
They must have made so much money off that.
Number 2, covered 439 times. The original version, 1939 by the Pine Ridge Boys. You for sure know this song.
Pine Ridge Boys?
Yeah. I would try to give you hints or do something, but it's just too easy.
What?
Number 2 most covered song of all time. You are my sunshine.
Oh, wow.
My only sunshine. That's crazy. That's a country song.
I mean, that's got to be an old folk song too, right?
1939.
Yeah.
Do you have the original?
You are my sunshine.
That's cool.
My only sunshine.
Oh, my only sunshine.
You make me happy when skies are gray.
Dang, that's cool.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Some of those harmonies,
That's
man.
awesome. I just picked him with one of those jugs, 2 or 3 X's on it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the number 1 most covered country song of all time, written by Pee Wee King and Red Stewart. It was first recorded in 1947. I wonder if this song has words.
Could you give me the artist? Or is that too obvious?
I can give you a bunch of them. Originally recorded by Cowboy Copas, Pee Wee King and his Golden West Cowboys. So it's really old, right? And then artists like Otis Redding, Ella Fitzgerald, Patsy Cline, Elvis Presley all did a standard of it.
Okay.
A version.
Oh,
No way you get this.
You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog?
No. Tennessee Waltz.
What on earth?
Can you play some of that?
Yes, I lost my little darling the night they were playing
I don't know it.
the beautiful Tennessee Waltz.
I don't know if you can cut that. I'm not sure if we can play that on the podcast or not. If you heard it, great. But Tennessee Waltz, the most covered song of all time, and I don't know that song.
I thought I knew a lot about music until now. A lot of music I don't know of.
A lot of Hank Williams Sr.
Yeah.
And also some guy recording himself with a fiddle and a
What was his name? Henry what?
Winkler.
One Bo Henry?
Yeah. Well, that's another episode of Eddie and Bobby Talk About Music.
Wow, I learned a lot there.
Hey, thanks for talking about music with me, man.
Yeah, anytime, dude.
First, thank you for coming over. This is cool for me because when somebody that I adore somebody and says, hey, you should really talk to them, I'm like, all right, let's go. And then I started actually researching about you. So Charlemagne the God's one of my best friends. Like, so we're so close that, and my company may hear, may not. Like, we switch out and take care of each other, like internal, like we grew up the same way. So he called and he said, hey, he told me you're writing this book. And the book that I read was because I've written a couple of books too, Alice, where this was the publicity book. Uh-huh. So all the chapters are like 0, 0, 0, 0. So I'd forget the places and like go back. But you have such a wonderful story yourself. And I'd like to start with just talking about a couple personal things. A couple things that I had pulled from the book that I was like, I got to talk about this because I'm interested in this. That even if there weren't microphones, I would ask you about. So I was part of the Charley Pride documentary because I was a massive Charley Pride fan. My grandma was. My grandma grew up and she was country music, so it was pushed onto me. But you had the chance to actually, I never got to meet him.
I got to meet him from 1983, from the beginning of when I came down here. And I got to spend some really sweet time with him at the very end of his life.
Yeah.
You said that you were in that Charley Pride
I
documentary.
was, yeah.
And so was I. And it was really funny. And for your listeners who don't know me, I've been in country music 41 years. Where we are today. I remember when George and Tammy lived here on Franklin Road, and I would come back and drive past their house. But so I was in the Charley Pride documentary in my role as being a professor at Vanderbilt, teaching about country music. And I was in the second VIP section, not the good one. But I was really thrilled.
There's a not good VIP?
There's levels of VIP. You're always in the top one, so you didn't know about the other one. But so I was lucky to be there and so thrilled to actually just be. And Tanya Tucker, I remember, she was in the first one and she deserved to be. And there was a seat by me, and Charley Pride walks in, and he comes and sits at his own documentary in the second VIP section to sit beside me. And of all the honors I have received, I almost tear up to this moment. He died not, I think, within a year of that he sat there, and when I came on, he's pointing to me. And when I arrived in Nashville in
83, right? Yeah, that's what you wrote about.
He had already been at the top of the charts 29 times. 29 times. He was about to go up with his last time to the number one spot. And I remember being at an ASCAP dinner, black tie, and walking across the room to see him. He has no idea who I am. And he stood up. I teasingly say, maybe he just had to go to the bathroom. Maybe because I was one of the only black ladies in the room. Maybe because he just had that good hoe training. He stood up, and we had encountered each other from 83 to the end of his life, and it meant so much to me. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I was getting my hair dyed, and I got a phone call from Garth Brooks' manager, Bob Doyle, and it was Charley Pride is getting this big award, and Garth wants you to be on the stage with him and talk to him about Charley Pride. And that was when COVID was still going on. I have the breast cancer thing, so I was really afraid of going out. That's how much Charley Pride meant to me. That I got on my mask and got on that stage and took it off. And we just had, Garth and I had an amazing conversation about Charley Pride because his voice, he carves layers of meaning. He didn't write, and I'm a songwriter. I don't sing. But I've been hearing about Charley Pride. I was born in Detroit in 1959. I remember when he came out as Black in Detroit City. His audience didn't know that. It was talked about so much that even as a little girl in Black Detroit, I heard that gossip right then. And his voice on the radio, it was just so utterly universal. Kiss an angel, good morning. I mean, there was just so much in every song.
What do you think, aside from how good he sounded, and I want to give my incorrect, probably, opinion, and correct me 100 times if you feel differently about it. Because again, I'm coming from in my perspective, as a white dude that grew up in a segregated black and white town. Mm-hmm. So my perspective isn't always going to be correct. Like, I'm not coming from the center of it. I'm coming from near the outside of the edge. And but I also know that. So if I say something, you're like, I don't feel like that's actually, let me know. Why do you feel Charley Pride was extremely valuable to country music in general?
Well, he literally was a brilliant singer. The way he bent notes, very similar to George Jones. He got that bent, how he bended and put all that truth, the passion, but he was important to country music for so many different reasons. But remember, his audience fell in love with him. They didn't even know he was Black. So they didn't fall in love with him because he was Black. He had that jukebox voice. He had that, I call it that Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning paradox. Like, he had all the sin in him and all the sacred. Mm-hmm. And when you got all the sin and all the sacred in it, you got a great country song. He was raggedy and right. But to me, part of the genius of Charley Pride that I hadn't thought of back in 1983, 84, is when he stood on the stage, he stood like an athlete.
He was such an athlete. Like, he was a professional athlete.
He was a baseball player. Yeah. He had been in the Negro Leagues. He even had some time in the bigs. And he was an athlete. He reminded some people of what Cassius Clay. He stood on the stage as a man and not as a performer. He was delivering the reality of a grown man's life. And I think people got it. Men, women, people got it. They were attracted to the power the power in his stance. And he was so charismatic. I mean, the man had a twinkle in his eye to the end. And that last time I was sitting beside my husband, I'm now divorced. And at the end of the documentary, I could tell something was, he needed to get to the bathroom. And we were on this stadium type seating. And I asked him, do you need David to help you get there? Absolutely, yes. And he accepted the help. David walked him out, was proud to be his walking stick. But even with walking, he still had his swagger. He's still gorgeous. He still had it.
The reason that they had asked me to be a part of the Charley Pride documentary, again, there's a lot of country music from when country music and gospel really were crossing over. So that's what I listened to a lot as a kid because my grandmother adopted me for a long time. So her music was my music. Everything from, Andy Griffith gospel records to Ray Charles, modern sounds of country music, all of that area. But Charley Pride to me I loved his songs, but I also am a massive sports fan. So I knew he had like a double life where he was such an athlete, but his story of all of his music being sent out places and never having a picture on it because he did not want to be judged or have someone not give him equal treatment because he was a black man. And the fact that they had to keep that up for a long time, that's what I talked about, and how there must have been such a range of emotions internally inside of him. One, to understand this, okay, if the record label is going to do this, this may lead to success. But two, I would imagine you probably want to be who you are at the same time. And from my understanding, that was always something that plagued him a bit.
Well, I said that phrase, he went incognito. People did not know he was black. But I also think he was a very strategic man. He was a businessman. Aside from being a musician, one of the things he was a role model to me about, and I've got to tell you in a moment, he's in my first family of black country, is he came and bought real estate. He came and invested in publishing. He came and supported other writers. He was a man among men. And I don't always like that because I say about country, small towns are smaller for girls, all girls. That was businessmen were running this town when Charley Pride came to town, and he found a space in that business life. But he had that visionary sense that he was both an artist and a business person. He understood it's a music business. If you want control of your fate, you got to get control of some part of the business.
Where do you think that came from? His acumen? What part of his life do you think that really developed?
Being probably very poor and hard, coming up really hard, and having nobody trying to help him. I mean, one of the stories, I don't know if it's true or not, that I wasn't able to document, but supposedly when he was in the Negro Leagues at one time, somebody traded him for a bus, being treated like an object and knowing you weren't. But what I love is that brilliance that he was so successful in one area that he was able to translate it into another.
Sure.
And this whole American stance. So, to me, I call it country is cornbed, Charley Pride, because, people want to talk about it. Most people didn't even realize. I was just on the radio with somebody who said that when they fell in love with Charley Pride, they didn't even know he was black. That he, quote unquote, sounds white to a lot of people. And that's one of the things when I talk about my book, My Black Country, I talk about a first family of black country. And the mama and papa of that is D4 Bailey and Lil Hardin. But one of the things about Lil Hardin that's so interesting is she played on this song called Blue Yodel No. 9. Everybody knows that song. It was the first million seller. It sounds like what people think a old hillbilly record should sound like. But the reality is 2 black people played on it, Lil Hardin and Louis Armstrong and Jimmy Rogers. People think they know what black people sound like, but they don't always. They didn't know Charley Pride is a stone black man.
We were talking about the book before you came in, and I was talking about how you had mentioned the first family, and I think you said Ray Charles was like the kid genius, the child genius, something like that.
Yes, Lil Hardin, D. Ford's brilliant child.
Yeah, he was the kid genius. What did you love about Ray Charles?
Oh, I love the way he plays the piano. You talk about the gospel piano.
Yeah.
My aunt had lost a baby in a house fire before I was born, and she basically had descended into a bottle. And when I was born, she came out of that. But what really, really helped her, she used to cha-cha around the living room with me to Ray Charles. The first year I was born, it was Just for a Thrill. That became one of the theme songs of my life. But when Modern Sounds and Country and Western dropped, that song, Bye Bye Love, it was an entire grammar of love for her. One of those songs was written by Felice and Boudleaux Bryant. And Felice is one of the greatest women songwriters country ever knew, but she's also a great rock songwriter. Bye Bye Love. Ray Charles had the most extraordinary song sense, but when he plays his piano, it takes you to church. And what I'll say in the book, I talk about, but that piano, that came from Arizona Drains, a blind woman who played in the Kojic Church out in Los Angeles, the way Jerry Lee Lewis pounded his piano, the way Ray Charles pounded his piano. Even Aretha owes a lot to a Black woman called Arizona.
My Black Country, the book in general, the entire project, is this something that you sat out, I'm going to write this specific book, or was it a different, like, collections of stories that you've had over an amount of time? Because I've done both kinds of books. I've just set out and wrote, I want to write this book. And then I've also had a bunch of stuff that I've accumulated and went, oh, this makes sense together. Where did this book come from?
Well, you're a real writer because it's a little bit of both of those things. It's that process. You know, when I first came here 41 years ago, out of Harvard, of all strange things, where I was listening to country while I was typing papers, I knew I wanted to talk about people like DeFord Bailey and Lil Hardin, Black people who have been erased from the history of country and the banjo, because I sincerely love country music. And I love it as a profound American art form that has been, in my opinion, co-created by Black and white people. And like you know, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, when it was a really segregated city. My Black Detroit was a majority white city, but my world was completely Black. Wasn't just a popsicle truck that went down the road. It was a watermelon truck in the summer. Might as well have been Detroit, Alabama. But those people, my aunt, my grandmother, my mother, they all listened to country. So I have known that Black people listen to country. Because if you were in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, back in the 40s, there was no Black radio to listen to. You could go to a juke joint. But if you listen, we're on radio right now, Black people, including Ray Charles, listen to country on the radio. That's why I'm honored to be on this show. Because this is the show, radio is what introduced Ray Charles to DeFord Bailey. That's where he first heard DeFord.
When I do my stand-up shows, I talk a bit about the history of country music, and I tell the story about how generationally, we'll say generationally, every decade, every 15 years or so in country music, the same argument of, well, that ain't country happens. Regardless, it's cyclical. And anybody that I've talked to, from Kenny Rogers to Garth they all will have the same story of when they came to town, and since they were a bit different, they were told that's not country. And so, but what I rooted in, and usually, and now I'm from a rural town in Arkansas, so I say this about other rural, semi-uneducated white dudes who go, well, that ain't country. They have no idea that really what real country is the combination of Europeans with a fiddle and the slave ships with string, banjo. Like, that's, if you want to say what exactly is country, it's those Black artists and it's those Europeans, and that's what got the music to the hills to even start to be created. Like, to me, that's what the original country music is.
Absolutely. And I would just add this one thing.
Please tell me. I'd love to be more educated. Yeah.
So it's the Celtic, English, Irish, Scottish ballad forms, plus the Black influences, plus evangelical Christianity. You need that the Black church and that belief in God in heaven. Because if not, if you don't have that, you may have a blues song. You may have a country blues. And if you don't have the Black influences, you may have a folk song. And all of those are real. But I think you're so right. And it's important to know when we're arguing about what is country, we're really arguing about what is America. Because country claims itself and is, in some real ways, America's music. And
yeah, like normal people. Normal, there's no such thing as normal, but like common, hardworking people's anthems. Mm-hmm. And that feels like that's where it started, because you're looking at immigrants and you're looking at people that were forced to come here, mm-hmm. and it gets no more hardworking than people who are either forced to find a new life or have to move from their old life because it's so hard.
Absolutely. Life is hard is one of the rules of country music. This, not to get into the wild, but 16 carriages. To me, when I heard that song, I hear the relationship to 16 tons. And I assure you, that song, which is a stone country classic, when I was growing up in Detroit, these men, black and white, working on the assembly lines, they knew everything about 16 tons. They weren't digging coal in a West Virginia coal mine or Alabama, but they were working assembly line that same way. Merle Haggard, Hungry Eyes. This resonates across lives when people are living hard lives. Johnny Cash, I shot a man just to watch him die. All kinds of mothers have felt that same pain. Country is hard music for hard people, which is one of the things I love about it. And my 4 country rules are, what makes a song country? Life is hard. God is real. The road, liquor, and family are significant compensations. And the past is better than the present.
The third one's kind of funny. The road, liquor.
And family are
yeah.
significant compensations for the fact life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
In blues, there's no significant. And is it true, I read somewhere, and sometimes you read things that aren't true, that one of your first interviews was Darius Rucker?
It was my very first ever.
Well, I read that, and one of the things when I tried it, that song of his from Hootie and the Blowfish, Let Her Cry, that's a country song.
He says it now.
But
yeah.
I was saying because it has a prayer in it, it has mama, it has God in it. That changes everything.
Yeah. Oh, mama, please help me. Yes.
Yeah, and this woman's about to go use drugs, but he is asking God. He's begging his God and mama. There is nothing more stone country than asking your mama and God to help you get through something.
And I think a lot of that too, because he's South Carolina, right? A lot of it, and I think, again, you're the expert. So, but I feel like regionally, even for me growing up before streaming music hit, you could really only get what was around, music-wise. So the influence was whatever's in the store, or unless you signed up for one of those 8 pennies for 20 CD deals, and then you get like a Chili Pepper CD. But it was all country music all the time. So if you lived in South Carolina, if you lived like Darius, if you lived in Arkansas, like myself, Georgia, so regardless of what music you liked, all that regional influence was built in. So when Hootie comes out and they're a rock band, there's so much country influence because Darius is from Charleston, South Carolina.
Absolutely. And what's going on in those Southern college scenes, they cross-pollinating through the sports teams, through the SEC. There's so much of that rooted countryness in that.
What was the goal when you started writing the book? What did you want to, when someone finished it, what did you want them to have?
I wanted them to have an understanding of how Black, white, and indigenous people came in together and built this thing we call country and that we love. And that it already has been baked into it, these cross-collaborations. And it's the cross-collaborations that actually make it amazing. I also wanted to go back and celebrate, I think life is hard and God is real. And those are some real centered truths that we all be better off holding on to, in my opinion, right now. And I didn't answer your question when you asked me. 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer, and that's when I thought, I've got to do this book. I've got to tell this truth of what I've been researching for 40-some years, and how this music helped me get through that moment and helped me get through hard moments before that. I love country music, because country music has helped me get through so much over the years, and so many other people.
Can I ask where you started? Not page 1 of the book, but where you started with the book, because it's always a fundamental jump-off point, something that's very important to your foundation. Where did you start this book from in your heart and your head?
I'll cry over it. Daddy, Don't Go in That BAR. That I wrote my first country song in a Motown cherry tree, and I also knew as I got older in Harvard, the other kids didn't write songs like Daddy, Don't Go in That BAR, because my daddy was an alcoholic. He was actually a great father, too, and he would jump into bar, go get a drink. I didn't even know what was on the other side of the door. And one day I said, Daddy, don't go in that BAR, just reading the sign. And he took me in with him. And it's like that Guy Clark song. He taught me how to drive when he was too drunk to. But I later, maybe a year after that, I was sitting up in a little cherry tree in Detroit looking at the highway, and I started turning that into a song I was singing to the birds. Daddy, don't go in that BAR. Please don't leave me alone in the car. And you talked about that early gospel. When I came to town, there's a man called Archie Jordan who'd written a huge song called What a Difference You Made in My Life. It was one of those gospel songs that was a country song. He touched that when he said, that's the hit. I said, that happened to me. He said, I know. I said, how could you know? He said, you can't invent something like that. So all my biggest songs, X's and O's, that happened to me. So I started with Daddy Don't Go in that BAR. And, I became friends with, in my life now, Bobby Braddock. He wrote DIVORCE, and He Stopped Loving Her Today. I heard that in the back of my mind. That's what kept that song alive. I was making the same kind of wordplay, letter play that Bobby did, because I learned it from country.
How long did you hold on to that song? Because obviously you're singing it, you have it, you hold it, until it actually came to where you were having somebody listen to it and record it. Because again,
that one I didn't. I couldn't let it go.
Okay.
That one. It was so everything for me and my father and him taking me inside. I could never collaborate on that song. Another song I brought here about a reckless night, about a girl and the girl and the boy make love in the green grass. They meet in the choir, make love in the green grass. He's still in the choir, and she's shunned with her baby outside the choir. That was the first song I had recorded. That was the first one I brought here that I could collaborate with Mark Sanders. And Bobby Braddock, he listened to the chorus of that. He said, you're never going to get two lines as good as your first two. So just use the ones you have twice. So but by then on that, I was turning, BAR was just too much my life. I could never turn it into art. But when I wrote the art of this memoir, I knew it's the cornerstone.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about your career. Were there other Black songwriters here at all that you would see regularly?
No, there was not. As far as I knew at the time, there had never been another Black woman writer. Obley, Clinton. It depends on how you look at it. They weren't here. Bill Withers, I believe, is a country songwriter. Grandma's Hands, Railroad Man. I knew he existed. I knew Lionel Richie existed. I was not seeing these people anyway regularly. And as far as I knew, I never saw any other Black women. D4 Bailey had died the year before I got here. I knew he had written songs. Charley Pride is amazing, but one of the few things Charley Pride did not do was write a lot of songs. George Jones is not known for writing songs, but he did. Roseanne Cash was actually a huge influence. I could tear up about her.
Charlamagne sent me a picture of him and her together a few days ago, and he said, do you know Roseanne Cash? And I said, I know. I'm from Arkansas. I said, I know of her, but I don't know Roseanne Cash. And so were you there with him?
I brought her.
Is that what it was?
That was my book launch.
Got it.
And I have known Roseanne.
He gave me no context. He just sent a picture of him and Roseanne Cash. I was like, do you know her? I was like, I know of her.
Well, what's wild is Roseanne, that's really so much about that. I've known Roseanne since the first year I came here. I was listening to her when I was at Harvard. She had her first album out in about 78, and I was in college, 77 to 81. I came here, one of the first things I got to do was work on a series of Johnny Cash videos and get to meet him. But I strung with paths with Roseanne, and particularly we were doing some environmental activism that she was getting started with. And she had a video production company early on. And that video company actually gave me the chance to write what became a Reba McEntire Video of the Year. But my closest thing with Roseanne, her daughter Chelsea considers me one of her top mentors, and I am. And she produced my podcast. I've loved Chelsea but Roseanne and I have known each other the whole way through. And so she had 11 number ones as a woman writer. I teasingly said her 7-Year Ache was one of the songs that helped me leave my husband, my first one. So I have been following Roseanne's path, and she's also a memoirist. And she has been watching me across a distance. I actually did more work with Rodney along the way. But Roseanne and I have truly come together and done, in these later years, some important things together. And both of us are great admirers of the other's daughter. And Chelsea, I love Chelsea. She loves Caroline. And when she's up in New York, when I was launching this book, I asked her if she would come and be in conversation with me. And she said yes. And that's one of the most important yeses any woman ever gave me in country. The other one was Trisha Yearwood. That's a whole nother story. But Roseanne, and this is her story to tell more, but she, now knows that her mama was black, part black, and she didn't know that growing up. And so that's been an interesting, small conversation that we've had. So I will cheesily say, if you want to, depending on how you look at it, with her 11 number ones, she was the first to pick, but she didn't know she was a black woman, and the audience didn't see her that way. And I'm not trying to say anything about her identity here. But I just am so proud that Roseanne Cash would come out, because she was a songwriter that was ahead of me when I was here, and as a woman writer meant so much to me.
Representation is such a big deal, especially to kids, because it's like kids need to see that things can exist and that they are part of that existence. But what was your representation in country music that you saw? Because again, it feels like you're the only black woman in town writing in rooms or writing with folks.
That's how I've been at that. My black family, my mythic black family, D. Ford, Lil Hardin. I knew that Lil.
So you got to go to history for representation.
I had to go to history. I had Emily Dickinson. I have that Mo Bendy song that starts out, "Hope is a thing with feathers that poaches on the soul," that is now Allison Russell has covered. That's Emily Dickinson. I had to remember when nobody believed in Emily Dickinson. She died with, I think, only having had 6 poems published. We now know Emily Dickinson is one of perhaps the greatest American poet, the greatest American woman poet. I had to believe maybe I was going to die without getting a song recorded. Now, I did get my first one recorded 2 years after getting here. And it's interesting to me that Bobby Braddock and Bob McDill, these are the two, in my time, those are two of the greatest songwriters here, Roseanne. Both of them supported me in different ways. Bobby and I would actually write a big song together. Bob McDill, who wrote Good Old Boys Like Me, Amanda, he took me seriously. But I did not have anyone who looked like me in the room. I was the unexpected body. I don't know if I could tell this or should tell it. One of my favorite writers, I'm not going to call his name, but really a person I came here thinking this is one of the great country poets. He met me, shook hands, stood back 4 feet from me and said, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, "I've been at this too long if I have to compete with N-word girls from Harvard for cuts." And I stepped right towards him and I said, "I am and you do." But I never spoke to that man again. That was one of the worst things anyone has ever said to me in my life.
Do you feel like that was a common feeling amongst the older male white writers in town, or even the younger male? They just didn't say it?
I can't judge. I mean, Steve Earle said he thought it was so wild he wanted to help me be a big writer.
Right.
Certainly Bob McDill and Bobby Braddock sat there and helped me. I think a lot of people thought, I think a lot of people use that word a lot of places, and I think a lot of people thought it was just impossible. But on the other hand, of all strange things, Merle Haggard loved the way I talked about his songs. I remember getting to dance with him one of those October weeks at a Sony party and talk about Hungry Eyes and what his poetry meant to me. And he had a song about an interracial love relationship, or I always get the title wrong, way back. That people are more complex than they seem. There's an old joke, and I don't know, I'm going to tell it. They said, I came up from Harvard. They say up north, people love black people in general and hate them in particular. And down south, they hate black people in general and love them in particular. What was wild is under the surface, there's a lot of love in country for anybody who really loves country and knows it. And what people understood about me is I knew my country music. And they began to think if I thought it was blacker than they thought it was, maybe it was. Does that make sense? I knew so many songs. Yeah, I knew Lefty Frizzell.
Did you feel like you had to prove yourself constantly? Because that's what I hear. That's what I hear you saying is that you knew a lot, and sometimes maybe people didn't think you would know a lot since you weren't white and from the South?
Oh, I felt like if I was willing to try to prove it, I was doubted, and that the whole Harvard thing didn't help either, frankly. But on the other hand, one of the reasons I loved what I did love about country music, there was more genius here than there was at Harvard, and I claim that Ray Charles, because being educated is not the same as being intelligent. And one of the things I love about country, I don't recall a change of any size. I love, He Stopped Loving Her Today. It'll be horrible for a moment, but good. Dynamic stasis. In almost all of Western literature, we love it when the hero changes, grows. But in real life, people often die without changing. And a country song will scare you about that. That song of Bobby Braddock's, they hung a wreath upon his door. Soon they'll carry him away. He stopped loving her today. That song inspires you to do something.
Because you don't want to be that.
You don't want to be that.
Right.
You don't want to just be stuck there. Country talks about the hard truths of hard lives. I was teaching, say, rock and roll is about chasing women, chasing men. Country is about finding some love when you're 25 years in it, like Conway, in that with your hair all up in curlers and that faded something gown. I just love to lay you down. There's nothing in punk rock harder than that. Or Roseanne saying, take the baby, grab the babies and the clothes on your back. Right now, Hardy, wait in the truck. The Dixie Chicks, when they're talking about Goodbye Earl with some Black Eyed Peas, there's some hard things going on in people's lives. And I'm totally anti-violence. But country has never shied away from the actual reality of how hard it is to make a living, how hard it is to keep the love going. But that's one of the things I love about this new song, Texas Hold'em. It's about keeping the love going way into the thing. But country has always been about that.
Was this just happened to be timed that Beyonce put her record out into the book? Was there, because the timing's perfect.
I think it's a God thing. I think there is some proof that God loves. There is God. It is totally, there was no plan to it that was any part of my plan.
Sure.
It has been, as I said, my whole thing started 5 years ago when I thought I might only have, if I only had a limited amount of time to live, what do I want to do? I started writing country songs and getting them recorded 39 years ago. So this album of songs that are re-recording of songs that have been recorded, it's been in the making 39 years. It's a literal God thing of the universe coming together. But it also shows that there's a common cause. A lot of people all over the world love country music. And one of the things I have experienced this as, I love that Dolly Parton, who's one of my favorite songwriters of all time, and Willie Nelson, who's one of my favorite songwriters of all time, are on this album, and Linda Martell, because it's like a great big family reunion, and the whole family's invited. And I feel a little tearfully about that, of being on your show right now, because the Bobby Bone Show is the biggest radio show in country. And when I was a young bride, I was married in 85, my first husband, Black, we got sent off he was a Foreign Service officer, to Manila in time for a revolution. And I used to have friends in Nashville, white friends, Mark Sanders, who would tape the country countdown on little cassettes and send it to me in Manila because it's the only way I could hear it. And I would play it on a cassette player in the Philippines, even during a revolution, and wait to hear those songs and wait to see what it jumped up on the chart, what hadn't. And now people are doing that with yours, your countdown. It's that same spirit. It's part of a family reunion. Everybody loving this music all over the world.
So I have 3 final questions for you. I hope I'm not keeping you too long. Okay.
Thrilled to be here.
3 final questions for you. What do you think has been successful about country music from its creation to now? What's the common theme that has been successful and has maintained, even though everybody complains about it changing all the time? Do you still believe it has the 4 principles or whatever what's the common thread in successful country music that has happened since day one to now?
It gives people those 3 compensations that they need for the fact life is hard. Because it gives you, when people are talking about the bro company, some countries, sometimes all you need to do is shake your booty. Sometimes you just need the distraction from how hard it is, that it recognizes life is hard, and it's giving people either the wisdom or the distraction to make it through another day.
Where do you think country music has lost? It's the exact opposite question, but the same. Where do you think it's lost its realness, or its from from its beginning that you kind of wish it would go back to? And it might, because it happens in cycles. What do you wish would happen?
I don't think it should be trying to be the coolest rock thing. I think it is grown folks music for grown people. And some grown people are 6 years old because their life is so hard. And so when it moves away from wisdom, completely doesn't have any God or faith in it, it is going the wrong direction. It is trying to be something it will never be. Because part of country music is it's wise. It's wise and it's true.
Like perspective is what I feel about is a lot of country music, right?
Yeah,
you don't get perspective out of easy things happening.
No. That's why that song, the Hardy song, Wait in the Truck, is so important. Because it's about having a series of bad choices to make and making the best bad choice.
Final question about the book especially. I have a lot of friends that they don't really read. They act like they read, but they like to read just a little bit so they can act like they read. So if I were to be like, hey, I want you to read this book, and they're going to lie to me and say they're going to read it, but they're really just going to read one chapter of the book. Now, I know it's a terribly hard question, but I know they're not going to read the whole book. I'll be honest with you.
Well, one, they can listen to the audiobook and hear
They're not
me
even
tell
going to
it.
do that. I'm telling you what's going to happen right now. They're going to
Okay.
go. They're going to go. I'm going to read it. But what can I serve them that they're going to finish reading this section of the book, and they're going to go, oh dang, like I felt that, and it's actually going to inspire them to read more. Like I need you to hit them with something.
I think it's chapter 8. That's the one where you're going across country and you're hearing about the black cowboys. It has some wild sex and some deep business stuff in it. It's got everything.
Okay.
That might be it.
That's what my friends do. They lie about reading books to me. They lie. Did you read this? They're like, yeah, and they read like
People
a
like
third
that's
of
one
it.
of the grown-up things that's part of the reality.
Yeah, when you write
Baby, I lied.
When you
That's
write a country song, I can't read
or Baby, I lied.
about
And-
reading. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, this has been amazing for me. Do you teach in classrooms still?
Yes, I am a professor.
I know you're a professor. Yeah, sorry.
and I do.
I told everybody what you did before
Yeah.
you came in.
Okay, well, I'll be teaching 2 things. I'll teach black country in the fall. I teach about 2 of the most fun things in the South: Southern and soul food and country music.
When you teach soul food, do people cook it? Do you have a?
They cook. They read cookbooks. We also read theory. But yes, they actually have to cook and serve the food. So so I do think I teach about 2 of the most important things that Southerners are most proud of, and where American culture is at its greatest: our great food and our great music.
Man, I wish I could eat because I went to probably 1 out of 4 weeks. I went. So my town, railroad track segregated. They had white quarters and black quarters. Still today. No, it's what's crazy. It's 2024. Still segregated. And about 1 out of 4, because I went to the Baptist church, but I would go over to black church. And the thing about black church was it may start at 8, but you may not go home till 2 p.m. Like, it was all day.
All day and all night.
But you also got fed, which at white church, that didn't hardly ever happen. At black church, you got fed.
Well fed.
Yeah. And it was like, at the time, I guess my metabolism worked pretty well. I stayed skinny. I have a feeling if I went and was well-fed at the same black church today, I'd put on about 40 pounds.
Well, I'm still eating all that great food, and I love it, but I'm enjoying every moment of the great music and great food. I am not.
I love the book. What I'm going to try to do is make my friends that I know like to lie about reading read little passages of it that hopefully inspire them to read other little passages of it.
Well, I'm honored that you read it.
I read it as the version that's not even full. You know, when they're not as much.
Well, I brought one for you.
I
This
would
one
love
is
to have
actually
that.
a gift.
That would be
I
even
brought
better.
this one. And I love that you and Charlemagne are friends. One of the things I love about country songs are Pancho and Lefty, the friendship songs. Me and Paul. I love the great friendship songs through country. And I think I've written some of them too. I love that.
That's my guy. Like, if he needed a kidney and he would take one from the White Devil, which he calls all white people, I would give him one of my White Devil kidneys. I would. Because I love him. I mean, that's my guy, and he's been my main number one in all media, and we're each other's confidant in a lot of ways, and we share. You know, when people talk about their money, when you grow up like we did, we don't. Who do we talk about that with? We didn't know how to have it. We don't know who to talk to about it, and that's what we trade that information because we trust each other so much.
Well, I'm his old auntie now, and so since you both are you're like some kind of soul twin brothers, I will give you some
I
auntie
appreciate
space
that.
if you ever want any over here.
But he does call all white people the White Devil, and I'm like, you know, no, not all of us. He's like, no, it's the White Devil.
Well, you know,
So you slap, be like, not all Not all.
You know, I'm going to tell you this little end country thing is that
Okay.
when I was growing up, my father used to say to me, if I ever dated a white boy, the only question would be, who would he shoot first, me or the boy? And then one day I had to tell him I was dating someone that was white. And my father looked at me and he said, I can't help but love who you love. He turned on that dime. He was
Because he loved you.
embodied country music.
Yeah.
That's what country
Family.
It does the hard thing.
Well, thank you again, Alice. This has been amazing for me. And, you know, we talked about a lot of your accolades and songs you wrote before you got here. And I want to encourage everybody, My Black Country, lie and say you read it all, but just start at chapter 8 and then move from there. That'd be the way to get most of my people to
I
listen.
love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Please keep up the good work. It is so needed and instrumental, and sometimes history can get away from us because we either try to cover it up or make new versions of it, or even forget because people behind us covered it up or made new versions of it. So I really appreciate the effort and the passion that you have for this, and thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having me.